Hi, my name's Sean. I'm an Enneagram teacher and a psychotherapist, and today we're going to be talking all about type 9 on the Enneagram. Now, type 9s go by a couple of different names. They're often called the Peacemaker, the Harmoniser, or the Mediator. And these names suggest a character who's very easygoing, is very friendly, amicable, and agreeable. Type 9s can be really great to have around because they are so easygoing and they just go along with the flow, they don't cause too much of a fuss, and they can be really easy to talk to as well. However, type 9s can get into trouble sometimes because they don't really have a strong sense of what it is that they want, which can lead them to getting into situations where they're doing things without actually wanting to do them. And they can have a hard time saying no, which means they can often get passive aggressive and stubborn. So let's start with the origins of type 9. The core belief for type 9 is the world makes me feel unimportant and requires me to blend in. Now, type 9s often found themselves in a situation in childhood where it was just easier for them to fade into the background and not draw too much attention to themselves. This could have come from a family situation where there was a family member who was seriously ill or had a disability. And so the whole family unit was kind of orientated towards helping this person and meeting their needs. And the type 9 felt that if they were to step up and kind of make their wants and needs known, that would draw away from this other person and potentially lead to conflict, especially if the parents, for example, were really drained already by taking care of this person. Another circumstance might have been a household that was really volatile. They might have had parents that were fighting all the time, parents that were abusive towards the type 9, or a parent that was an alcoholic or had a mental illness. Something where it was just easier for them to go along with the flow, because if they were to actually step up and voice their needs and their wants, it would just lead to more conflict and more people getting angry at them. And to do that would mean losing a connection with that person, and so they just found it easier to just fade into the background. Type 9s are located in the body center of the Enneagram, where the core emotion is anger. Now, unlike type 1s who are in conflict with their anger, and type 8s who are expressive and comfortable with their anger, type 9s fall asleep to their anger, they numb it out. Only in very rare circumstances will type 9s actually express their anger, but for the most part it comes out in passive aggressiveness and stubbornness. The reason for this is that type 9s have a really difficult time understanding what it is that they want and need. It's not to say that they don't have wants and needs, it's just it takes them a while to get there. And this links back to what we just mentioned about their childhood experience of feeling unimportant and just blending in with other people. The result of this is that it can condition other people around the type 9 to think that type 9s are just really easygoing and they don't have any preferences and they're just going to be happy with whatever happens. But that's not always the case. Sometimes type 9s don't want to do things and they don't know how to say no about that. Or they don't know what they want or need, or if they do know what they want and need, they don't know how to express that to other people without it leading to conflict. And this can lead type 9s to often be in situations where they're doing something they don't really want to do, or they've agreed to go along with something even though they actually had a preference for something else instead. The passive aggressiveness can come out in other people not really getting a sense of what their wants and needs are, or feeling as though the other people doesn't really care about them or thinks they're unimportant. And the stubbornness can come out when they find themselves constantly doing things for other people they don't want to do, and eventually really resisting that. And so the anger is there, but it's just not actually coming out in a healthy and natural way. It's instead being just really suppressed and pushed down and coming out in these other different, more passive ways. And this brings us to a really important point to understand about type 9s, which is that type 9s do not like conflict. They avoid it at all costs. See, type 9s do this thing called merging, where they kind of merge with another person or a group or even an inanimate object. And this is different from connecting. When you're connecting with someone, you're kind of bringing your full self and they'll bring their full self to the table and you have a connection. Whereas merging kind of takes things one step further because the boundary between those two things dissolves and so it's completely merged. Now, psychologically, you could say that this kind of harkens back to the initial connection that they felt with their mother. Very young infants don't actually have a sense of self, they just experience themselves as being one with their mother. And eventually that separation of self occurs, but I think that for type 9s that didn't occur in the way that it should have, in the sense that they don't have a very strong sense of self and kind of have a difficult sense locating themselves in the world. And so merging kind of brings with it a sense of safety and security because they feel whole once again. And this links us back to what we were talking about before with anger and their needs and wants. Type 9s do feel anger, but if they were to express that, it would mean conflict and ultimately mean disconnection. And so when it comes to a choice between expressing their anger or just falling asleep to it and ignoring it and numbing it out, the obvious choice is to do those things because it means remaining in connection with another person, remaining merged. And when it comes to their own needs and wants, even if they do know what they need and want, and they want to express it, or they definitely know what they don't want, it can be really hard to do so because that might mean conflict, even if it's something as simple as deciding what to have for dinner. So it's just easier for 9s to just go with the flow and not speak up about what they want and need, because it might mean having conflict with another person, which might then mean separation. The trap and paradox of this, though, is that conflict is a part of life. You can't go throughout life not having conflict because people will eventually disagree on things. And not having any conflict can actually build up problems over time and weaken relationships rather than strengthen them. The type 9 passion is called sloth. Now, we don't really use this word in the way that it's meant to be used here much anymore. We just use the word sloth to talk about the cute fuzzy animal, the sloth. So sometimes the word laziness is used to describe this passion, but the difficulty here is that type 9s aren't always lazy. In fact, they can be quite active and busy people, but the catch is they're not often active and busy for themselves. They're caught up in doing it for other people or just doing it without actually knowing why they're doing something. So sloth in this context refers to falling asleep to themselves, a laziness to oneself. Type 9's passion involves being disconnected from their own inner world and their inner experience. And the difficulty with this is that it's actually a paradox, because if you're not connected to your own experience, how do you actually recognize that you're not connected to your own experience? It can be really difficult. And we've talked about some of the reasons why this might be the case. Having a childhood where it was just easy to fade into the background and not really wanting to express anger or get into conflict or get in touch with your own wants and needs. And all of this ties into the defense mechanism for type 9s, which is called narcotization. So type 9s, when they encounter something that's too much for them to handle, it's really overwhelming or stressful, or it can be something involving conflict or being uncomfortable about something, they'll numb themselves out. They can do this by pulling out their phone and just scrolling through social media to just get lost in it. They can watch TV, just do the dishes, gardening, anything that's not going to be too disruptive, that's going to feel really comfortable and stable and peaceful and easy. And this can happen in more extreme circumstances where type 9s will get involved in doing drugs or drinking, or they can just completely dissociate from their experience where they don't actually remember hours or days at a time. And the trouble with all of this is that what it leads to is a life that goes unfulfilled. And it's been really heartbreaking for me over the course of learning about the Enneagram to encounter 9s who speak about all of these dreams and hopes and wishes and goals that they have that just go completely unfulfilled. So type 9s will often have a collection of self-help books that talk about, how to use your time effectively and how to set goals and be your best self, and all of these things that are probably written by 3s that talk about how to, be yourself and accomplish all of these goals. And they love the idea of this, but when it comes to actually getting into motion and doing these things, they can't do it because they're completely disconnected from themselves. The growth path for type 9 involves getting in touch with who they really are. When type 9s are able to start doing work on themselves, they have a stronger sense of their internal self, and they can get in touch with their wants and needs and then set meaningful goals and work towards achieving those goals. This process can sometimes get disturbed because type 9s equate this growth path with just doing stuff. And so they might try to do more stuff, but what can often happen is they get lost in the agendas of other people. So for example, they might have a conversation with a partner about something they like to do, and their partner might make an innocent offhand suggestion about how they should do it. But the type 9 will then get lost in this and say, oh, well, I should probably do it that way because I don't want to cause any conflict if I do it a different way. And therefore we fall back into the same pattern of numbing themselves out and just going along with the agendas of other people. So this is why the virtue for type 9 is called right action. It's not only taking action, but it's about taking actions that are right for that particular type 9, doing things that are in alignment with their wants and their needs and their values. And when type 9s are able to grow, they start showing up like healthy 3s, very driven, goal-orientated people who are active and engaged with the world. And this shows up in the way that they embody themselves in the world as well. Instead of merging into the background and just kind of blending in and not making a fuss, type 9s are able to actually step up, speak their mind, engage with other people more. And they have a strong recognition that conflict can actually be really helpful and useful. Better things can come out of conflict if people are able to converse and talk about their different opinions on things. And it can often actually bring people closer together if they have a greater understanding of how each other works through that conflict. Now, if you have some type 9s in your life, you might be wondering how you can better get along with them. Now, that's not to say that type 9s are going to be hard to get along with, because they're the exact opposite, but many people want to know how they can help type 9s to get a better sense of what they want and go for that. What I've heard from type 9s is it really helps when people ask them multiple times, but are also very patient and compassionate with them as well. So for example, if you're trying to figure out what to have for dinner with a type 9, you might say something like, hey, what would you like to have for dinner? And the type 9 might respond, oh, I don't know, whatever you want to have is fine. Okay, well, let's just say, we're going to go out to dinner. Is there anything you'd really like to have? No, I haven't thought about it much. Whatever, it's fine, don't worry. Okay, but, I'd really like to hear, if there's something that you would like to have. I mean, I can choose something, but if there's something you would like to have, you should probably tell me about that. No, it's fine, don't worry about it. Let's just do whatever you want to do. Okay, well, let's see. If there's something that you would really love to have, it would blow everything else out of the water, what would you really love to have for dinner? And you can tell me, it's fine, I don't mind. Well, now that you mention it, we actually went to that Chinese place around the corner last week, and I really liked that. Maybe we could do that again, would that be okay? Yeah, absolutely, let's do that. And so, this is a bit of a silly dramatization, but the idea is just being able to slowly and patiently work through with them to help them to figure out what it is that they want and what they need. And if you're a type 9 and you're kind of worried about this, I would just want to let you know that most of the people that I've met who have type 9s in their life say that they really, really want to know what you want and need. They're genuinely interested in that because they get their way 95% of the time. And so they're more than happy to kind of give you a bit of space now to actually get your wants and needs now. And that brings us to the end of our video for type 9. Thank you very much for watching. If you did like the video, please drop us a like and make sure to subscribe to our channel as well, where you get updated on new videos from us. If you are a type 9, please leave a comment below. Tell us a little bit about your experience of being a type 9 and how some of these themes resonated with you. And if you have any questions or other things to add, you can always drop a comment below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.